Good afternoon. I'm doing a video here. I told you before that a couple of years back, almost 2 years ago now, my stepdad Jack passed away, and he had just a boatload of tools that he had accumulated throughout the years, and so like the past year, I've been helping my mom. Just I've gone through them. I brought home a couple of smaller toolboxes. I videos up in the past of getting those things cleaned up and painted and all that. Um, but here the other day, we found a few more tools, and most of the stuff there, it was thankfully we were able to do, pass it on to other people. But one of the things I came across was this old Craftsman tool pouch, and it was, it was really, really disgusting, to be honest. It when I brought it home, initially brought it home, this it was just covered in just a film of just mildew and oil, and that was one thing. But the other thing was just the smell. It was just, I can't even describe it. It was like a mix of like must and like used machine oil and like cigarette smoke, and you name it. It was, he worked at it. For years he worked at a plant that did tobacco, processed tobacco and packaged it. So what I did was I wiped it down real good when I got it home, just to hopefully get the some of the cook off of it. I once again, I really wish I would have done a before, but it was so gross that I didn't want to. And you could smell it as soon as you walked into the garage. But I stuffed it for about 3 days, I guess. I stuffed it with these tea bags. It was just like every nook and cranny, and also this bag of it's baking powder and a coffee filter. And that has, it doesn't completely, it didn't completely eliminate the smell, but it thankfully got rid of some of it. Now it's not awful. It's sort of it has just that old leather smell to it now. But just what I want to do, basically what I'm gonna do is do another clean up here with saddle soap. It's like your typical TV saddle soap. Going to do another exterior cleaning and interior. I apologize for the upteenth time with the lighting. Is in my garage is not very good. But I just want to see where I'm at with this, and I wanted to start documenting it because I think it's pretty interesting. If you've never used saddle soap before, basically you just want to make a lather, and go from there. The one mistake people make with saddle soap usually is they don't lather, they don't make enough of a lather, and they sort of put it on like shoe polish, and that's really not what it's meant. It's a cleaner. It's not a polishing wax. It's a soap. That should be pretty good. So here's this. Let's see if we could. There was a lot of grime on the front here that you could see these little, I don't know what the hell it was, but I just want to see how this looks. The rivets came out nice. Even that was just with really with soap and water. They cleaned up really well. I don't know how old this thing is, but I'm assuming it's at least got to be from the 90s, I would guess. I looked on Craftsman's, the Craftsman website. It's not listed on there anymore. On eBay, there are versions of this, but it has a different model number than this one. Still, it definitely has a funky smell. This is like this soap, like, as I said a lot of times, you don't realize how something how dirty something is until you start cleaning it. And that's the case with this thing. Once it did, I could really smell this cleaning is bringing it out. But my goal here is really I just want to see how when people, there's a couple schools of thought on restorations. Some people they want to keep it. They want to keep it whatever they're restoring. They want to keep it as true to the original as possible without without ruining the so-called character that it built up over the years of being used and all that. But for me, in this case, I mean, sometimes that line of thought has merit, but in this case, I want to get this thing clean, and I don't care if cleaning it ruins the character, if you want to say that. That's, to me, I don't want the thing to smell like an old cow, which is what it smells like right now. The interior, especially, it's really inside of it. It's just awful. And cleaning it, I don't know what I guess you call it the skin side of leather. Cleaning the skin side of leather is not fun. Hopefully I'm not destroying my shoe brush here. I've had this thing for God knows how long. As long as I can remember. I think I'll take it upstairs afterwards and give it a nice bath. I just, it's, as always, Jack and I have very different philosophy when it comes to tools and how tools are stored. And I'm very much on this side of keeping things as clean as humanly possible and keeping them in as good a condition as possible. There's guys, like if you've ever worked out in the field electrically or in construction or whatever, there's people who they want, if their tool belt or tool pouches or whatever look new, it's like some sort of you look like a newbie or whatever. To me, that's, I don't care in the least about that. I mean, this thing is gross. Good Lord. This is one of those things what am I getting myself into? You see the amount of just grime that's coming off of this. And this isn't the first time I've washed it. This is the first time I've really scrubbed it. But when I got it home, I actually did a wipe down of it just to get the really, really grimy stuff off of it. Starting to look better. And I'm looking at the camera here. This thing, it almost looks black under this lighting, but it's really like almost like a walnut color. There were a bunch of wrenches in it and some Allen key, screwdriver, stuff like that. And he had pouches of this size. The only reason I took this one was because it's leather. He had other pouches that were made of the ballistic. I prefer leather. I always preferred leather pouches, but I don't mind the other ones either. I do have you know, I did have pouches that were made of, I don't know, I think it's called cordura, which is like a ballistic material. Um, but he had an assortment of pouches of this size, and what I think he would do is he had them. You know, he was a packaging mechanic, and you know, different packaging machinery in the plants that he worked. He would set up a pouch, like a small pouch for each machine, that he would just do like for your general maintenance stuff, where he knew exactly what wrenches and Allen keys and whatever were needed for each machine. So rather than, like, if something needed a quick tune up or whatever, he would go and grab the corresponding pouch, and rather than, you know, load an entire tool cart or toolbox over to the machine, which makes sense. But that might be, if you see that right there, that's probably what the original color of this was. That it's now darkened considerably. It still it still has a funk to it. I'm not gonna lie. Another thing he did. There you go. That might be the best view yet. Right there. That is probably the original color. So you can see how much this thing is darkened. And it's very old. Probably 30 years old, I would guess. Maybe a little bit more. Which is old for a tool pouch. But another thing he did, which I would never do, is what's I'm doing there? Ironically, I'm using an awl to do this. He poked a hole in the screwdriver slot here, and he had like one of those like little swivel hooks in there to hold keys. And I'm again, you do what you want with your tools. Everybody has their own little quirks, but I would never personally. I would never do anything like that, because it is just as easy to go buy one of those with a you know, you could buy one of those little swivel hooks that will clip on onto your belt or whatever just as easily. Why destroy your pouch? Once again, it's just different philosophies. I don't, you know, you paid money for this. You know, when you bought it, so why are you going to wreck it? That was the same thing. And if any of you watched the last video, the video I did, I mean, about restoring the larger toolbox. One of the larger toolboxes I brought home was, he had, I'm guessing that what happened was he lost the key to the lock, and he just drilled a cheap haspin and onto the face of the toolbox, which, once again, like, even then, that toolbox was probably purchased, I think it was purchased in the early 2000s. Like, you could have gone to any Sears and purchased the keys for that specific box for about $5 at the time. I mean, I got two tees for $10 on Amazon, I think it was, or it might have been from Sears. But regardless, I ordered them online. Maybe back in 2005, it was a little bit more. I don't think it was. I'm no tech guy at all, but I've had online access since the mid '90s, like a lot of people. So it wasn't like getting those tees was difficult, is what I'm saying. But it's just like, yeah, that's the one I said before. The one thing with the attitude, like a lot the generational attitude is, we had our mindsets, our philosophies were much. Jack was a baby boomer. I'm I guess you told me Gen X. I was born in the early '70s. We had a very different type of upbringing, I guess. But I would never treat my tools in the way that I've seen, not just Jack, a lot of guys from his era. I guess it's funny to say that, they say that Gen X was the first American generation that did worse than their parents on average, meaning they had a little bit tougher, things. Gen X was the first generation where, things that were more money. It was more of a struggle in terms of income as opposed to costs for things like cars, houses, higher education, all that. And I guess for the Jack, who he always had, he was a skilled mechanic. He was very good. He always had a job. He was never hurting for work at all. So it was not difficult for him. It was. I'm trying to get the goo. There was so much goo came out of the pouch, and it ended up in my saddle soap. And I do use this on my. I use that on my my boots, to clean my boots. But yeah, as I was saying, the mindset of tools just being almost throwaway objects. It seems to be a lot more. My dad was the same way, not to the extent Jack was. My dad was a little bit more thrifty in that regard. But he treated his tools a little bit better. But still, he would never go through the trouble of, like me, like building a workbench and getting specific tool storage and all of that. And also maybe it was just for the fact that for those guys, getting tools was easier, getting quality tools. I mean, but by the time I hit my 20s, the traditional hardware stores that every neighborhood had at one time were starting to disappear, and the bigger makers started focusing more on consumer products than professional tools. So maybe for me, getting a lot of people in my age group, getting tools that were of good quality became more of a struggle too. So maybe we from that lesson we were a little bit more cautious with them. I don't know. I just don't. As I said, for me, it's almost blasphemous to not take care of your tool pouches, your tool bags, and all of that. But once again, that's just me. So, I mean, This, I suppose that looks somewhat better. With the outward appearance of this, to me, right now is fine. Like, I wouldn't feel, I would have no issue wearing that to work. I would never, like, as I said, you know, some guys, they want their tool bag to look like, you know, grimy and all that. I think I don't. I want to look like a professional, somebody who takes care of his stuff. But it still smells pretty bad, especially after that second cleaning. So, oh God, that's really rough. So what I'm going to do, I have this here, so just for like leather work boots. I just picked this up. I'm going to try this and see how this works. But I'll do another video on this. I'm going to do probably another. I'm going to do a spray with this. I'm going to return the baking soda bag and stuff the interior packages again with the tea bags. And I'll do another video, sort of like an update, see how it goes. But hopefully, the outside is much cleaner, and so that's I'm very hopeful. I do have a leather repair kit. I'm going to try to see if I can seal that hole up. But otherwise, I'm going to see if I can get the smell out of this. Just if I can, I don't care what it looks like. If it smells that horrible, I just can't use it. So appreciate you watching. Thanks. Have a great weekend.